everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sideline Banter, brought to you by the Women of Fantasy Football Network. I am Sam Holt, of course, joined by my co-host, Derek Tate. Tate, how the hell are you? We are now, I would like to say, deep in the offseason, just because I miss football so much. It feels forever ago that the Super Bowl happened, but we're in the offseason and we're here to have fun.
Well, you have something very exciting to talk about, and it sounds like you have a new family member that is going to have a birthday that is very close to my youngest, Maisie, who is turning 4 years old on Sunday. So I'm going to have something else to do that's going to take up plenty of my time on Sunday that does not involve football.
Good for you. Yeah, I actually spent my Sunday just checking the text message feed because my brother and his partner had a baby come on Monday. I'm very excited to meet my new niece. I can't wait to meet her. I'm going to go visit this coming month. So thank you for that. Lots of good news. So the Holt family tree has grown and the need to pass on an heir has already been fulfilled. So I'm good.
I mean, it's very important now that you're actually, dipping your toe in the water in the Game of Thrones universe.
Yes. Yeah.
You understand that there is a family lineage that is now, the succession has already been determined.
Yes, the Holt family will continue on. Thank you to my brother. His
Congratulations,
partner, Amanda. Yes, I'm very excited to meet my niece. So that will come next month and I get to meet them, but yay for me. Thank you for that lovely tee off. I appreciate it. In terms of other actual football news, though, as much fun as I want to just keep talking about my lovely niece because she's so cute. I keep looking at pictures all day. We have a couple little pieces of football news to talk about, brand new things. Mm-hmm. Tyreek Hill was cut by the Dolphins. Not necessarily a shocking thing, considering the world that Tyreek Hill has created for himself and where the Dolphins are currently at. My first thought is, do we see him back with the Chiefs?
I think it's certainly a possibility. I don't know if it's a guarantee, though, because they're really going to have to restructure the deals of a few players in order to clear up some cap space to make any real moves. And while Tyreek Hill certainly had part of his, I think, future Hall of Fame career with the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, and there's certainly a familiarity there. And this offense hasn't been quite the same since he left. Mm-hmm. Sam, this isn't 2019.
Yeah, times have changed.
Not the same player. He is also an aging player that is, most of his game is built around his revolutionary speed. Naturally, as you age, you get a little bit slower. And he's also coming off of a major devastating knee injury. So there are questions about what his speed is going to look like coming back from a major knee injury at that age, past the 30-year-old threshold. So while maybe a one-year deal reunion certainly can kind of be worked back in to the Kansas City offense as he gets healthier, I just don't know if that's the solution that fixes all the problems there with the Kansas City offense.
Yeah, I think to the point that you're bringing up with his devastating knee injury is, what does this timetable look like? Because if he was cut, you don't necessarily have teams rushing to go and add a player to their roster that is currently dealing with an injury. This is probably a situation where I could see him staying off of any team until the season has already begun. And then you see teams that are dealing with new injuries go out and sign the veteran that he is to see what speed is left in the tank. And to your point, probably to a one-year deal.
Yeah, I think that there are other teams, other suitors that could make sense for Tyreek Hill and probably would, give him another payday. Not a huge payday, but it'd probably pay a little bit more money than some of these other Super Bowl contenders that have more restricted funds available. So maybe like a team like the Tennessee Titans kind of makes sense.
That could make sense. They like their veterans, right?
They seem to grab a new veteran receiver every year. It's DeAndre Hopkins. It's Calvin Ridley. Why not throw a dart at Tyreek Hill?
It makes sense. So it kind of fills in that need that they sometimes have. I'm hoping they do a better rebuild than that. But in terms of other players looking to test the free agency market, I guess you could put a nice positive spin to that for Tyreek Hill. You've got Mike Evans, who is officially coming back for this season, but per Adam Schefter, will be testing free agency. I feel like you kind of spoke this into existence last week when we were talking about landing spots for Mike Evans. So are you the harbinger of your own fate as a Bucs fan that you did that? Is this your fault?
Don't you dare put that on me. Don't you dare put that on me as I'm the reason that Mike Evans is potentially testing free agency and ending
You
his
said it last week.
like Hall of Fame career with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Maybe I did, and maybe I just sensed it was coming, Sam, because I scratched my head when the Buccaneers selected Emeka Egbuka last year in the first round. Because I thought to myself, well, hey, Jalen McMillan had a really nice rookie year, and they re-signed Chris Godwin before the NFL draft. They already have Mike Evans under contract. You know, that was, I thought, probably the greatest strength on the roster entering the season, and Jason Light selected a receiver in the first round. He's a very good player, but now you look at the contract situation a little bit differently. Do you really – the Buccaneers have other – positions to address on this roster.
Sure. Yeah.
So does it make sense for a second consecutive year when you have other young depth at that position to pay a veteran wide receiver, even one as great as Mike Evans? I can understand why maybe both sides are considering, not for sure yet, but considering parting ways.
Yeah, and then to the points that you made last week as well, is they had already signed Godwin to an extension, correct? So in terms of like money already being wrapped up elsewhere with another veteran, that's still a thing on their radar. So it makes more sense that he tests those free agency waters because, I mean, Egbuka had a huge, amazing season. McMillan showed a lot of sparks of talent as well. I think that it makes a lot of sense for Evans, who the only reason he didn't have another record-setting year was begot by injury. There's so many teams that I think are in contention that could use his amazing skills.
Yeah, no, and maybe he's just as upset that the Buccaneers retained Todd Bowles as the head coach as I am. Maybe that's why he wants to jet, because maybe he looks at this Buccaneers roster, and again, this is pure speculation, no reports or anything like that. But maybe
if we didn't speculate, Tate, would we have a podcast?
Speculate?
There you go. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, well,
you get one.
Maybe I'm one. But when we're talking about the Buccaneers and their outlook for 2026, this is a loaded NFC. And if I look in the AFC, there are certainly a couple teams that have glaring needs at wide receiver one, namely, Sam, the Buffalo Bills. I just think it makes way too much sense. And I still think Mike Evans has good football left in him. I don't think he's done. He had a really injury-plagued 2025 campaign. I still think he can really play and be specifically someone who can win for Josh Allen and man-to-man coverage out on the perimeter and still can generate some big plays down the football field. He would be a significant upgrade even at this advanced stage of his career over what they've gotten from Keon Coleman over the last 2 years. So I think the Buffalo Bills, they would have to do some cap dancing as well. But I do think that is a landing spot that just makes so much sense for Mike Evans.
I think that is definitely one that makes sense. Sticking in the same division, AFC East, I feel like the Patriots, depending on what they do with Stephon Diggs, if they bring him back another season or not, he's got some off the field stuff that he's dealing with right now that I'm not going to touch right at the moment. However, if they're looking for another veteran presence receiver to take this team that just made it to the Super Bowl and go for it again, that could be another one that fits. Another team that, you know how much I've been talking about Carly Irsay, and I love the way that she manages the Colts. I could see her going out and making a splash and saying, you know what, we went out and we grabbed the likes of Sauce Gardner because we had a need at corner. When you look at this wide receiver room, it's not exactly one that jumps off the page. I mean, Michael Pittman, yes, has had moments. Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, I feel like this is a team that could use. I'm just hyping up your guy. They could use a Mike Evans in this locker room. Don't you think so?
I appreciate that you're hyping up my guy, and I love Mike Evans. And do I think he could give you what Alec Pierce gave you last year? Probably, but look, Alec Pierce, his first 1,000-yard receiving season last year, and I thought he was the best deep threat in an offense that really was super aggressive, pushing the ball down the field vertically. I know. I don't want to sit here and say that Alec Pierce is going to be a breakout candidate for me in 2026, but they do have to make a decision on him. So he is certainly a player that really intrigues me. If they let Pierce walk, then I could see the path where you're talking with Carly Gordon, maybe making a play and throwing her hat in the ring for Mike Evans.
I mean, we already talked about Tyreek Hill probably re-signing, or not probably. It could. I just feel like it's going to happen. He's going to end up back with the Chiefs. I feel like it's going to happen. But if he doesn't, another team that would love a veteran, receiver and has another chance for a playoff push, just because they always do, would be the Chiefs. And I think that there's a lot of teams here that make sense in terms of rebuilding. The Raiders are a team that keeps going out and just making random news, re-signing little random coaches here and there. They definitely need help at multiple positions outside of Bowers. There's nothing, and Ashton Genty. It's hard to find other exciting points in terms of pass catchers.
If Mike Evans is looking to compete for a Super Bowl in 2026,
I'm just saying.
That division's pretty loaded too.
Yeah.
Yes, he can get paid if he's looking for the almighty dollar and one more big payday, then probably the Raiders is certainly worth considering, but
not necessarily a Super Bowl contender. I saw that and I was like, oh, their wide receiver room needs help. They're still not in contention. But just saying, in terms of if other teams that have a better chance don't come knocking, and he wants to get paid and go elsewhere, I could see him going somewhere like that. But besides that, let's go ahead and jump into the meat of this episode. Guys, we are going to be doing deep dives on every division and looking at the gaps and needs for each of these teams. We are starting with the NFC West because we want to start off with the Super Bowl champions, the Seattle Seahawks, and we will continue to ping pong back and forth through the NFC and AFC in each division. So if this group of 4 teams is not your cup of tea, just like and subscribe and join for next week and see which one we cover next.
Leave it on in the background though. We want to
just play it in the background. We like the views. We like the listens. And
the average view per viewership. Yeah, I'm really messing up the data points, but you get the point. Like, subscribe. We appreciate your support.
Yes. All right. Let's go ahead and jump right into the Seahawks. I think the big question here is, because it came up during the parade, is are they going to bring back Kenneth Walker? Are they going to renegotiate this contract and get him back with the Seahawks? I think I mentioned it a little bit last week. I kind of feel like the Seahawks are a team, given the way that they're currently constructed, and they did just lose their offensive coordinator, that they attempt to run it back with similar personnel. Do you feel like they go ahead and they try to keep Kenneth Walker? I don't know that they would benefit necessarily from letting him go at this point.
Well, they have other players, though. They're going to be up for contracts that they may place a higher priority on than Kenneth Walker. So personally, Sam, I understand that Kenneth Walker had a very nice finish to this season and that he is a very talented back, had his a great Super Bowl MVP. There's no better way to cap it off. I get it, but I see them maybe prioritizing giving extensions to some of the players that are going to be coming up here soon. Jackson Smith and Jigba is going to need a pretty big payday to stay on the roster. And you start looking at on the defensive side of the football, Devin Witherspoon is going to be up for an extension here pretty soon as well.
Fair.
So I'm probably going to prioritize other positions. Zach Charbonnet will eventually come back healthy. And I do think that maybe you can get and supplement other options via the draft. I like right there in their own backyard, Washington University, Jonah Coleman. I really like his game. And while he's not the pure athlete that Kenneth Walker is, I see a lot to work with. So could they add a guy in the draft at a much cheaper price rather than having to pay a running back who I think has been a bit of a disappointment and certainly has dealt with a fair share of injuries throughout most of his NFL career? That's just me personally. So I kind of feel like if they're not going to use the franchise tag on him, and John Schneider sitting there making jokes as the GM while he's drunk celebrating the Super Bowl, man,
it was a little awkward, wasn't it?
Yeah, you think he's just making up a joke that Kenneth Walker is negotiating his contract right before he walks up to the mic. That's not funny. Let's not play with the man's money.
Yeah, let's not do that. Let's keep it.
Yeah,
keep it
I personally don't see them prioritizing Kenneth Walker. I would much rather try to allocate those funds to other players on the roster.
So do you think they'd make that pick at 32?
Jonah Coleman? No, I don't.
Would that be like a round 3 pick?
I would say probably a day 2 pick for Jonah Coleman.
And what's his comp? Do you think?
Oh, Personally, I see a little bit of like Lev Bell. Like,
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I'm not going to go as far as to say that he's as good as Lev Bell, but
Sure.
I see some similarities with Lev Bell. I think he's a very patient runner, has good vision, slippery tackler, and also has a 3-down build. So Jonah Coleman's really a guy that I'm probably higher on than most. I haven't gotten a chance, Sam, to take a look and a deep dive at all of these prospects yet, but Coleman is someone that certainly stands out to me if the Seahawks decide to let Walker test free agency.
That makes sense. Joseph in the comments here with it's just the running back market. It sucks, but it is what it is. Yeah, kind of. It is the truth. Such a volatile position as well. And to all your points as well, Kenneth Walker has not been estranged to injury himself. So really curious to see if they bring him back. In terms of other needs that you feel like the Seahawks need, I mean, obviously it's kind of hard to pick them apart when they just won a Super Bowl. But in terms of trying to balance out this team with their picks, I've got them in our notes here. They've got 32nd overall pick in the first round. They've got pick 32 in the second, the third, and in the sixth round as well. So they've got a few picks here to work with to add some padded depth. Where would you like to see them pad this roster?
So their secondary right now is loaded, but Reek Woolen is also likely to hit or is up. His contract's up. So we'll see if they work something out with him or they franchise him, or if he was really tied to a lot of trade rumors, Sam, throughout some of the season for Seattle. So I wouldn't be surprised if they could be in the market for potentially trying to address the secondary if they decide to let him walk. But I would probably say defensive back or offensive line in round one. I just continue to build up front. You're going to have a great defense. They've got so much talent on all three levels of the football field, but knowing the way that Mike McDonald really prioritizes how versatile his defensive backs could be, I could see them maybe trying to replenish the well on the back end if they do decide to let, because I think Josh Jobe is also potentially his contract's up. So that's really the main place and position on this roster that they could lose some of their depth. So I could see them spending a late first trying to address that position.
That makes sense. I mean, it's hard for me to find other places where they're lacking. I felt like just looking at their tight ends, those were all extremely young, very talented players as well. All of them stepped up, and I felt like there's not necessarily any needs there in terms of wide receiver. There's a lot of balance there as well. I could see them maybe going out and grabbing someone late just to try and pad the room and get some more experience there.
I kind of think that Mike Evans is a sneaky landing spot for them too. I mean, a really nice number two alongside Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Well, Cooper Kupp has a multiple year deal. It's not just a 1 year deal he's signed to. We can't forget that he's there.
I know. And okay. Cooper Kupp just won another Super Bowl.
He did. You can't knock him. You can't keep knocking him.
I'm not going to knock him. Fantasy wise, not super excited, but hey, he is a champion. Can't take that from him.
No, you can't. Legends last forever. But let's go ahead and jump talking about the Rams because they're the next ones on this list. Stafford announced at NFL Honors that he will be seeing all of us next year. So he is officially back heading into the 2026 season. But I do feel like the quarterback position is a big question mark for the Rams because though Stafford put in an MVP level year this past year, he is not getting any younger. Despite his really brilliant style of play, I think helped by a very high-powered offense and thanks to Sean McVay, they are going to have to address what their future looks like at the quarterback position. So this one, in terms of potential options, they've got 2 first-round picks to play with. And it's been a while since the Rams have had some fun picks to play with because back in the day, they said F them picks and sent those away. And they got themselves the Matt Stafford and got that Super Bowl. And now they had a chance to get back in it this year, and they fell slightly short. So how do you feel like they go into this draft specifically, and are they going to be taking a quarterback early?
You have to get – I don't know if they're going to take a quarterback early. I understand the temptation, right? Because you mentioned Matthew Stafford coming back. That's great to know. And he's coming off of an MVP season. Like, he obviously can still play at a very, very high level and Personally, if they win that game against the Seahawks, they probably would have won the Super Bowl this year, Sam. I just think that they would have matched up really nicely, too, against the New England Patriots. That being said, if you have a win now roster, I'm not going to spend a first-round pick on the replacement quarterback. You want to maximize the window of what you have with Matthew Stafford while he's still there. And this roster, to me, is good, but it's not good enough to where you can just take a luxury pick on a quarterback like Ty Simpson, unless you really, truly believe he is a surefire starter moving forward. You do your research on him, that's fine. But no, I'm prioritizing probably corner. They made it work with Emmanuel Forbes.
Sure.
And I just think you can get better there. I also want to see maybe an upgrade at linebacker or maybe investment in that offensive line to continue to protect Stafford. So I think that you have an opportunity here, a rare opportunity to really fill very few needs on this roster with a quarterback playing at a super high level and an explosive offense. I'm not going to go the direction, Sam, of going quarterback, given where the Rams and how close they were to getting to the mountaintop in 2025.
That's fair. Would you also say that this quarterback class coming in 2026 is maybe less strong than the potential it's going to be in 2027? And so maybe more of a reason to not be blowing the load early?
100%. You don't take it's one thing if you're like a team that has to take a quarterback and you don't have one, but you have the reigning MVP under center for your team.
Yeah.
There's just, and you're this close. That's a premium pick. I mean, personally, if somebody else falls in love with Ty Simpson and you can flip that for a piece that can help you win right now, I'd be open to that. Or if you want to trade out of that position, Sam, and maybe try to get a first in 2027, if you want to kick the can down the road for when, hey, maybe Matthew Stafford really does hang up the cleats in a deeper quarterback class, that's something that makes sense to me too. But I'm not going to try to jam a square peg into a round hole unless you really, truly believe that's the guy.
Yeah. And I feel like that fits the story of the Rams and how they've run this team since Sean McVay's been with the Rams. I feel like it's definitely a lot of chess, not checkers, in terms of how they make their picks and how they construct their rosters going into each season.
Right.
I'm really curious to see how they move these picks and how they turn them into multiple things, because I would not be shocked if they make trades away from some of these picks, addressing needs that you've already mentioned at other positions, and then turn this into a better pick and better setup going into next year, knowing what they know that they'll have to do to build. Because I mean, you have to call a spade a spade. Stafford is getting older. He's had several injuries this season that he played through valiantly, again because he was the MVP. Not going to knock him, but just saying, this isn't a live forever situation. Like he's gonna need to. The sun is gonna set on this career, and it doesn't feel like it's that far away, just given his age.
So when the Packers got a couple of, I think, back-to-back MVP seasons from Aaron Rodgers, and the Packers decided to select Jordan Love. Like, I get that you want to have a backup plan and you want to have a successor. We just talked about the line of succession to start the show. But,
sure we did. Yeah,
we did. I'm not going to force it. I think that at corner specifically, Jermod McCoy from Tennessee, Mansur Delane from LSU, like those are two guys that I think you can consider taking with your first pick, and then kind of just playing the board and seeing how the offensive line prospects kind of filter out, or if you have another like an elite top 15, top 10 talent on the defensive side of the ball slips down the board, Sam, I'd be willing to consider doubling up on defense, because I don't think the offense was the problem for the Rams. I think on the back end of that defense was where maybe they got a little bit exposed over the back half of the season.
Yeah, I think that's fair. There were so many things that were working so well on this offense. I mean, the run game was clicking. The multiple tight end sets, I personally loved watching. I know you did too. and obviously Adams was playing at a very elite level opposite of Puka Nacua. So definitely think a lot of bright spots there. So really curious to see how they turn this into a big defensive win, the Rams do, going into this draft. But this comment here from Knucklebuster, kind of bringing us back to the Raiders that we were talking about earlier to start the show. They're saying here, I'm thinking the Raiders should wait till 2027 for their quarterback, now stock up on O-line and D, then get one of the 8 guys coming in out of 2027. Would you agree with that statement? Because it feels like the Raiders kind of need a quarterback now, and I feel like they're going to take the number 1 pick, and it's going to be Fernando Mendoza.
Well, how do you feel about Fernando Mendoza? Because that's the question.
I mean, he seems just so sparkly and so fun. He just seems like a breath of fresh air that Raider Nation might need to bring into their lives.
Sam, there's no guarantee that you finish with the number 1 overall pick. Like, I understand we expect the Raiders to probably struggle in 2026 for sure.
Yeah, it's the Raiders.
But, I mean, what if Clint Kubiak is a really damn good football coach and gets the most out of that team, and all of a sudden they win, let's just say 7 games. I know that that's high, but let's just say they win 7 games and their pick is somewhere around 9, 10, 11. Like, now what are you doing? Like, now you don't get the young quarterback to build around. Like, I just think you have a chance here. You have a glaring need at that position. I think that this Mendoza kid's really good. So, unless it's just an insane haul from like the New York Jets, right? Who I think have 5 first-round picks over the next 2 years. Let's say they give you, they give you like something crazy to move up 1 spot and take Mendoza, like a future 2027 first or something like that, or 2 of them. I'm not doing it unless it's a king's ransom. You just have an opportunity to get a kid that I really believe in. And for him to be your franchise quarterback.
I feel like the Raiders aren't going to move from this pick. I mean, this is kind of a pick that's kind of made for them. And you say, you feel like it's high, them getting a 7-win season. I agree, because they're sitting at 3 right now. And, 7 wins would just be the peak of the mountain at this point by comparison. But to your point, I do love everything that Clint Kubiak did with the Seahawks. So hopefully he can be the answer there for the Raiders. But let's jump back to NFC West and go to the Niners. A lot of fun stuff with the Niners. Hopefully they move their practice field, because that's so much a topic of conversation. I think we're all tired of it. But to all those good points, we don't want those electromagnetic fields rupturing any more Achilles or tendons. So Niners, how about we get that shit together so we can bring in some fun rookies? Because it seems like there's going to be some players moving around this season, likely going to be losing Brandon Ayuk. The Niners are, and needing to kind of rebuild, maybe reshape this wide receiver room a little bit. Their first pick is at 27 in the first round. Tate, do you feel like this is the first most glaring need that they have? Because there were some moments, and this was just a team that was so snake bitten with so many injuries,
right,
where they've had a good defense on multiple fronts. They've had, so much strength on their offense at different points, but it just felt like the depth is not, or is never there for the Niners. And how do they shape this off season, and how do they kind of rewrite the script for what 2026 has in store?
I think they really have to have a plan for Trent Williams. Speaking of a guy that's kind of getting older, at a premium position, Christian McCaffrey, while he had an outstanding fantasy football campaign, a lot of it had to do with volume. He wasn't really super efficient on the ground, Sam. And I know a lot of it has to do with the fact that he had so many carries and touches and stuff like that. But it is still something where I think that the offensive line could use some retooling and certainly some investment on that front with higher draft capital. And really the pass rush, Sam, was rough. I mean, I know that Bosa got hurt. I know that Mykel Williams got hurt. I understand they were just absolutely snake bitten. Then they were snake bitten at wide receiver too. I'm just saying, I don't feel like I want to pigeonhole them into saying, hey, you got to take a wide receiver in the first round. I think that you kind of have those 3 needs are places I could see this team going. And I wouldn't even count them out for Sadiq, the tight end from Oregon.
Okay.
for George Kittle, who also just had a devastating Achilles injury, and he's past the age of 30. So I personally, and you're probably there where they're picking Sam, they're probably not going to get Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon, Jordan Tyson, or probably even Denzel Boston. Casey Concepcion, I think that he has actually some Debo Samuel qualities as far as the yak threat goes. I think that in that Kyle Shanahan offense, he could be a really nice piece and complement to what you think Ricky Pearsall could do in a Brandon Ayuk type of role. But again, they all got to stay healthy. But I could see Concepcion being an option there.
Okay.
At the end of the first, but I also think you can get something similar from Omar Cooper from Indiana, and Jeremy Bernard is also another guy that I like if you decide to wait until round 2 or round 3 to address the receiver position, depending on how the board falls at the end of the first.
I think that's fair. And I think there's something to be said about reworking and bringing in some rookie depth at the offensive line position as well. I mean, just looking back at the Seahawks and what they added, Gray Zabel was a huge grab for them at left guard and was incredible for them going into this season. And a lot of the rookie ads that the Seahawks added this past year were the reason why they ended up in the position that they did. I do feel like some strong, talented players up front to help relieve Brock Purdy, get him a little bit more time so that he can continue to scramble and dazzle the way that he does, I think would be huge. But I'm not sure. I feel like I worry a lot about the Niners going into every offseason because, one, I know how many players are injured and they need to work on getting back. But then also my curiosity is how are they going to pad this depth because they're going to continue to be injury riddled going into the next season.
We don't know that. Let's.
It's been over and over and over. I have a lot of friends that are Niners fans, and at least that's what they tell me all the time.
Optimism. I thought we were entering this offseason with optimism, Sam.
It's going to be great. No one's ever going to get hurt again.
There we go. Thank you.
And you know what? They do have a lot of picks. So lots of fun things to play with the Niners do going into the offseason. So really interested to see how they make those picks work for them. All right, let's talk about the Arizona Cardinals. I like that the way I wrote these show notes where I was like, okay, we want to try and do 10 minutes max on each team and make sure that we talk about picks and we talk about the different players. I don't know what the Cardinals are planning to do this offseason, but it can't be worse than the year that they just put forth. I know that one of the first question marks we have to talk about is Kyler Murray and if he remains an Arizona Cardinal going into this season. I know that for myself, I heard in passing during media week, someone mention him being a trade candidate and ending up with a team like my Steelers. And I want to cover up the logo behind me because I don't want to put that evil on me. But I'm just saying, I feel like he's a candidate that could end up on a different roster.
I think it's a foregone conclusion that Kyler Murray is not going to be the quarterback of the Arizona Cardinals. It's a monstrosity of a contract that they're going to have to try to figure out via trade. But yeah, Sam, Jacoby Brissett thoroughly outplayed him last year.
Thoroughly. I mean, Jacoby Brissett, just really quickly, was winning a lot of fantasy managers, a lot of games, and helping a lot of people make it to the playoffs. And just, tip of the cap to Jacoby Brissett for doing what he did for us fantasy managers. We needed him. He was there when we didn't know we needed him. And thank you, Jacoby. But yeah, I definitely feel like Kyler is. Well, this is the last we've seen of him playing in a Cardinals jersey.
Well, I mean, I personally, the New York Jets kind of stand out to me as an option.
Yeah, he can go there. That's fine. It's not going to affect me. Sometimes I say stuff because there's a lovely occasion where the wonderful Josh Hudson will be backstage and helping us with things like show notes and questions popping up in the chat. Sometimes I say stuff and I'm like, I think that this is going to get him to laugh. And yes, I got to see his little thumbnail photo just rock back and forth. So that was a fun one for me.
I mean, I also don't know what the Dolphins are going to do with Tua Tagovailoa down there in Miami.
He sounds like a great Jets candidate.
Jets, send him to the AFC East. Just
Why not?
Not to the Steelers, according to
No.
Samantha Holt.
Nope. I don't want it.
So I do think he is a trade candidate. So the bigger question though is like, let's just put on our tinfoil hat, right? Because this is speculation. This is offseason. Let's say that the Arizona Cardinals do decide to go ahead and find a trade partner and part ways with Kyler Murray. Do you think that they should just roll into the season with Jacoby Brissett as their starter and as a bridge guy, and then try to punt the position, addressing the position until 2027?
I mean, if this draft class coming in is as strong as everyone is leading it to be, and looking at some of these prospects, it makes a lot of sense to do that because Brissett was just so successful. And how much more successful would he be going into the season knowing that this locker room was at his helm? I think it would actually do a big benefit, because I think when a locker room is, misguided or has leadership kind of shuffled around too much, you can lose direction. And I think you need a confident captain to steer the ship. And he's someone that has had that veteran presence across multiple teams. And I think that he's someone that should be able to do that. I mean, looking at the picks that they're sitting at here and knowing what we know about what this class is compared to next year, they're sitting with the 3rd overall pick in the first round, which is not a shabby pick. But to all the points of they've probably got several other needs, and we haven't even started talking about, running back James Conner possibly coming back from his injury history. Right. Marvin Harrison, has not shaped up 100% to being what we want him to be. But how much better could Harrison be having a full off season to receive catches from Jacoby Brissett? I feel like it could help him. Again, we're trying to be glass half full and optimistic. I'm trying to say this to myself as well. I think it makes a lot of sense for them to maybe pick up a later quarterback in this draft and just have someone that's sitting for padded depth. But again, not drafting someone so high up that would then tell Jacoby all the hard work you did this offseason is going to get ignored.
Yeah, I mean, what I would consider, you could certainly draft a guy. I also think that there's a guy named LaFleur who's the new head coach there for the Arizona Cardinals.
Not that LaFleur, the other one.
But, hey, could one LaFleur talk to the other about, hey, Malik Willis? I had success with him. Talks to his brother and has a real conversation about, hey, this guy could be a successful starting quarterback in the NFL. Because as much as he struggled with the Tennessee Titans, I thought he looked like a starting caliber quarterback, Sam. And I know that sounds insane, and maybe it's just a small sample size with Matt LaFleur, dialing up everything. Maybe that's the case. But is that a guy that you could pair with Jacoby Brissett for one season? And if Willis wins the job outright, then maybe you do find a multi-year starting answer at quarterback. If it doesn't work out, then the Cardinals are going to probably have a rough year again, and they'll be in that quarterback market in 2027. I think that that's something that could be an option if they decide to part ways with Kyler Murray. But you mentioned how bad the running game is, and James Conner got hurt, and Ray Benson got hurt, and Amari DiMercato would drop long rushing touchdowns on the 1 yard line.
Not good.
And then when he wasn't having those long runs, they weren't able to get much going on the ground. I think that they really, 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 really have to address that offensive line as well.
Yeah. So I again, just looking at how many picks they have going into this this draft, they've got several to play with here. And again, knowing that you've got a slightly better quarterback class coming in next year, I feel like it makes a lot of sense for them to start the season with Jacoby Brissett. To your point, do some sort of shuffle at the backup quarterback position where you get, Malik Willis is definitely a name that's also been thrown around for the Steelers. I don't know where to go with that in terms of how we want to have our starter. But for this team, for the Cardinals, it makes sense for them to have him as, a veteran, a very well-equipped backup that could handle this offense should Brissett go down in a different way than someone that's so green coming off of like being a 3rd or 4th round pick QB in this draft.
Well, one thing that you brought up there is if they do decide to say, hey, Jacoby, you're our day one starter no matter what.
Yeah.
And you bring in Malik Willis, in a contract that maybe looks a little bit similar to what Daniel Jones got last
Yeah.
offseason. You bring him in, and if he ends up winning the job, or like you said, Brissett gets hurt, or the Cardinals just get off to a really slow start, and they're not going to go with the veteran if they're 0-5 or something like that through the first month of the season. So then you give the young guy a look and really see if you have anything with Malik Willis as a potential long-term starter for your franchise. That's just me putting on the tinfoil hat. Personally, for Marvin Harrison Jr.'s fantasy value, though, I really hope Jacoby Brissett is the starter, because when Brissett was under center, that's the one time in the first 2 years that we've seen anything that resembles the generational talent that we all thought Marvin Harrison Jr. was entering the NFL.
I think that's fair. I think there's just been so many moments with him where you get kind of deer in headlights moments where it feels like his confidence isn't there or hasn't been there.
100%.
And I just feel like when you have an entire offseason knowing who your QB1 is, and there's a level of familiarity where he's been able to save you in the past. So he's coming off of games where he played well with him, and you can build that rapport. It's going to be so much better for him because he's still so young and he's got so much left to show that he's got available that we haven't even seen yet. I just hope that whatever move they make, this is something that it's going to help him flourish. And they got to adjust this run game because they got to get pressure off these receivers.
Well, speaking of receivers, though, is Michael Wilson the best receiver
Of all time.
No. No. It's not.
You paused too long. I had to fill in the blank.
But
I know.
right there, a little off. But is he the most? Should he be the highest drafted fantasy receiver in Arizona next year if Jacoby Brissett is the day one starter?
In terms of being drafted over
Marvin Harrison.
I mean, off the page, in terms of what he did last year compared to Marvin Harrison, who did have several, painful drops when you go by comparison. Wilson had over 1,000 yards receiving last season. You can't say necessarily the same for Marvin Harrison. He had just over 600. I don't think it's a crazy thing to say. But I think I'd be curious what round you would say would be the highest, because it's like, in terms of overall ranking for receivers. Is he the first Cardinal off the board when it comes to this pass catching room? As of right now, yes.
Is he the first? Well, no. I mean, for the receiver room.
For the receiver room. I misspoke. Yeah, obviously, Trey McBride.
For the receiver room.
Yeah, receiver room.
But, I mean, Sam, he did have 3 games with 10-plus receptions and over 100 yards receiving. I mean, and even the final 2 games, he was 5 receptions for 89-plus yards. Like, the finish that he had last year, if he's with the same quarterback, and this team is as bad as they were last year, which hopefully they're not for Arizona fans. I'm not trying to speak it into existence.
No.
But y'all are in a tough division.
It is brutal uphill climbing for that division. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's worth chewing on, because Michael Wilson was really that good over the back half of last year, particularly when Jacoby Brissett took over under center.
Yeah, well, hopefully more bright spots ahead. I mean, I feel for Trey McBride because he is the bright spot for this Cardinals offense and for a lot of fantasy managers, the likes of Mike.
We love Trey.
We love Trey.
We love Trey.
Good friend and also fellow woman of fantasy football, Kelly Singh. Big Trey McBride fan. Huge. If she could draft Trey McBride 3 times on her roster, she absolutely would, because that's how much she loves her tight end, and specifically Trey McBride. But respect it because he's that good. Hopefully they can get some other bright spots. They do have several picks to play with. Like I said, they've got 7 picks going into this draft. Hopefully some good stuff lies ahead, though.
Yeah, I do think that they're going to address the running back position. I just don't think it's obviously going to be with early. I don't think it's going to be with early draft capital. That to me wouldn't make a damn lick of sense. I already mentioned Jonah Coleman. A couple other guys maybe to keep an eye on in the draft, but I would also not rule out maybe Breece Hall or Kenneth Walker. I mean, maybe them kind of addressing that need in free agency. I wouldn't rule that out because, they just haven't gotten anything from Trey Benson. And I don't think you can count on James Conner. As much as I love Conner, I don't think you can really count on much from him in 2026.
No, I know, especially coming off an injury. This one started in the comments here. Cards need Francis. I'm not going to say this name correctly, so you're going to let you say it. And grab bookend with Paris Johnson at their right tackle position. Allowed over 90 pressures in 2025.
I mean, he was great at the University of Miami. Mm-hmm. So I would not hate that at all. Absolutely. I mean, if you're not going to get the quarterback to replace Kyler Murray, or if you do decide to keep Kyler, then certainly giving him a running game to rely on and whoever's protecting whoever's going to be under center should be something that you can build with moving forward with a high price pick, and maybe just drafting a guy with a very high floor as opposed to trying to swing and hit a home run on like Arvell Reese or something like that is certainly something worth considering.
Yeah, I think that's fair. All right. Any final thoughts on this division before we wrap it up for the night?
Good luck, Arizona.
Good luck, Arizona. Okay, so of these, that's not very glass half full, but of these four teams, who do you feel like has the best chance of either repeating for the Seahawks in terms of winning the division, or who's going to be the big surprise going in next season? Looking at these candidates, I mean, I think the Cardinals obviously have the most work to do, so they kind of dropped to the bottom of the list for me. Niners are kind of, again, they've got to prove it and do a lot of retooling and get healthy to make an argument. I feel like there's a lot you could say that the Rams and Seahawks, they'd end up duking it out again going into this next season. And depending on the draft that they have, perhaps the Rams can edge them out.
I think you're sleeping on the San Francisco 49ers a little bit.
Really?
They went to the final game of the season pretty much for the number 1 overall seed with all of these injuries. Like,
they did a lot. They would have done better, healthier.
You know what? That's fine. Yes, I'll take the loss.
No. I made my pick on who I think is going to win the division. I'm saying essentially, I feel like the Rams, depending on how they handle this draft, could end up.
Oh, you're picking the Rams.
I'll just go ahead and quickly pick the Rams. You can pick the Niners if you want.
Okay. I mean, the easy picks just roll with Seattle.
Fair.
So. I don't want to start off too hot takey, go against the grain with a bold pick on our first offseason pod of the
bring the heat. Come on.
NFL season. So maybe I reserve my right to change this after free agency. We're doing some of these before free agency hits.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I'm going to go with the team that just dominated in the Super Bowl as the team that should enter this year as the favorite to win this division.
Very fair, very fair. I'm probably putting too much weight on them losing Clint Kubiak as their offensive coordinator going into this next season. It's a thing. It's a thing.
It is a thing.
But yeah, it's fun to have a little spice. So if mine's a hot take, that's fine too. But that'll about do it for us on Sideline Banter for this week's episode. Guys, like, subscribe, and follow everywhere you get your podcasts so that way you don't miss a single episode. Next week, we will be covering another division. We'll go ahead and stay in the NFC and go east and talk about the Cowboys, Giants, Eagles, and Commanders next week. So make sure you tune in for that one. And we will see you next week. Have a good one.